Hi, and welcome back to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is August 9th, and today we're going to hear part 2 of the article that we started yesterday entitled A Day for Dads. We're going to be talking about Father's Day.
This is a really big card-giving holiday in the United States. And according to one source and according to another source, it's either the 4th or 5th largest card-sending occasion in the U.S. Almost 100 million Father's Day cards get sent out. But there are only 77 million dads when they cited this research. So I'm guessing that means like maybe some people that are not dads get Father's Day cards. Like my mom always sends me a Father's Day card. She doesn't have to. But really what I think it's more like one dad gets like 3 or 4 cards from his kids, and then you got to send one to grandpa, and then the other kid will send it to grandpa. So it's like your one dad is getting multiple Father's Day cards.
And who is the force that is behind creating so many days for special occasions like Father's Day and Children's Day and then Tree Planting Day and blah, 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 blah?
Yeah,
who's the big force behind that?
The force behind that is the milquetoast company known as Hallmark. Right. They're so boring. Hallmark is so boring.
Because they want to sell more cards. And personally, from the time I was a kid, I have never liked cards because what do you do with them?
You know, it's very funny that you mentioned that because I am actually, in fact, a very big card giver. At least from Taiwan. In America, so Hallmark is a big company in America that sells very expensive cards. They're like 200, 300 NT a pop.
And they're often very corny.
And they're corny and boring, and you have to write your own message. But in Taiwan, Christmas cards are just so much fun. I will spend 2,000 NT on Christmas cards and then send them to everybody. I'll send them to friends and family. I'll send them to people that I had a good conversation with this year just because, number one, they're from Taiwan, and it's cool to send Taiwanese cards and a Taiwanese stamp, and I will send them out. But that's almost exceptionally for Christmas or maybe like a fun birthday card in Taiwan, but not like a Father's Day card.
And that's a nice way to stay in touch with people who you maybe are not in touch with so often. I think that's fine. But I have become more and more minimalist over the years. And that is that I try to get rid of as much stuff as I can. And over the past couple of years, I've just been selling and giving away stuff. So my house now looks fairly empty, but we're not counting books and instruments and things. And so cards are just one of those things you think, this person went to so much trouble. What?
No, nothing. I'm just thinking like perfunctory. Like this is what we were talking about yesterday. Like it's perfect you have it there because it was like, this is what I was going to bring up. I'm like, it's so funny. I didn't mean to catch your attention.
I was just puzzled because Chris was pointing at a word that I wrote on my paper here, and it was from yesterday, perfunctory. Partly because it's perfunctory, but also because I don't know what to do with all that stuff. And if you save all your Christmas cards, you're going to have a house full of flammable stuff. Flammable stuff, or it can get soaked when you have a leak. And all these things have happened. I just like to get rid of as much stuff as possible or keep it out of the house in the first place. So I, for one, was really happy when people started sending e-cards.
My one teacher that we talked about on this program actually always sends me an e-card, but I always send him a physical card. Oh. And I think that's a little funny because he's a little bit more advanced in age. I'm a little bit younger than he is. Yeah. So I send the traditional card, but he sends me the e-card. And I noted that. I said that's a funny little way we've flipped roles traditionally.
It is, but at least you feel that there's less paper waste with an e-card. Yeah, it is a nice way, and people will give you nice thoughts and things. So, or newspapers, a physical newspaper, your hands get all black and you have to recycle them. So anything that's just going to accumulate and make your house more cluttered, I mean, I don't want it in my life. Okay, let's go to our article for today. It's part 2 of A Day for Dads. The third Sunday in June is known as Father's Day to some, but not all. Throughout the world, there are different days set aside for honoring fathers and various reasons behind the dates.
Several European countries mark Father's Day in March. These places include Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Croatia. The date, March 19th, stems from a shared Roman Catholic history. The date coincides with the feast of Saint Joseph, who was the father of Jesus. While it remains a religious feast day, March 19th is now a holiday celebrating all dads in these places.
Father's Day in Brazil, like Spain and Portugal, is connected to a saint's day, but in the South American country, the day of celebration is the second Sunday in August. This day honors Saint Joachim. He was the father of the Virgin Mary and, like Saint Joseph, now shares his special day with all fathers.
In Australia and New Zealand, Father's Day takes place on the first day of spring. In these Southern Hemisphere countries, this falls on the first Sunday in September. The choice of date, unlike most places, is all about practicality. September was picked as a time to honor dads because there are few holidays during this time of year.
In Thailand, dads need to wait until the end of the calendar year for their celebration. The country celebrates Father's Day on December 5th, which is the birthday of the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej. Not only do families give gifts to fathers and grandfathers, but the reigning king often gives a speech that is broadcast throughout the country. Let's go back to the beginning. The third Sunday in June is known as Father's Day to some, but not all. So we are establishing that it's not just a thing between Taiwan and the U.S., but other places also have different days set aside to honor fathers, and they have different origins too. Throughout the world, there are different days set aside for honoring fathers and various reasons behind the dates. Now, this is kind of funny because the first time I read it, it was an NG. You have to watch where you pause. So there are different days set aside for honoring fathers and various reasons. Should we honor various reasons? No. You have to put a really long pause after fathers because we've got a whole different clause after that. So there are different days set aside for honoring fathers and various reasons behind the dates, and then it will make sense. Otherwise, you're not honoring fathers and reasons.
Okay, let's continue to our next paragraph. Several European countries mark Father's Day in March.
There we go. That's very straightforward. We've got another month in play here. So we started out with June and August. Now we've got March.
Mark here feels like it's a little more specific than to set aside. Let's look at our next sentence. These places include Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Croatia.
Please watch out for the pronunciation of these countries. Now, Spain, most of you probably know already, but watch out for Portugal. Chris pronounced the L, but when I learned it as a kid, it was just an O sound, Portugal.
Interesting.
Portugal. Have you ever heard that?
No, actually, I haven't.
But lately I've heard people putting the L there, so Portugal is fine. And then Italy is not a problem, but you've got a TIA in the next country, so watch out for Croatia. And it used to be part of Yugoslavia, Serbo-Croatia. Now Croatia is an independent country.
So when I said the names of these countries, I could visually see the European map, and I'm thinking Spain, Portugal, Italy, and then those are very close countries, and then it pops over to Croatia, which is not super far from Italy, but it is a little bit of a distance. It's interesting that it remains here in Croatia on our day that we'll see in the next sentence. Let's continue. The date, March 19th, stems from a shared Roman Catholic history.
They have capitalized Catholic here, so you know that it is a proper noun. So Catholic actually just means universal. So Catholic with a small c just means universal. When it's capitalized, we usually mean Roman Catholic. It's better to be really specific and precise and say Roman Catholic.
Let's continue to our next sentence here. The day coincides with the feast of St. Joseph, who was the father of Jesus.
Now, I don't know about Catholic practice, but in Protestant churches, Joseph just did not play a very big role. It's sort of like he was kind of along for the ride, He just was not a major figure.
That's such a funny way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose given his role, his wife did give birth to Jesus, but he wasn't involved in it. I suppose he was just along for the ride. What a funny way to...
Well, that's what they say in our religions, but I think anybody would say, of course, he was the father.
Okay, so as a Roman Catholic, I'm not a Roman Catholic anymore, but I was brought up Roman Catholic, and I was involved in the church fairly regularly. We didn't really talk about Joseph that much. I agree. I think him being along for the ride is a very good way to describe it, although there were often kind of suggested hints that Joseph was clearly the guy that taught Jesus his trade, that took care of Jesus growing up. It was all implied, but nothing was ever explicit other than Jesus didn't just start being Jesus when he was born.
In both Roman Catholicism and in Protestantism, people believe in an immaculate conception, which means that Mary became pregnant without having had sex. And when Joseph learned that she was pregnant, he agreed to divorce her quietly. He thought, oh my goodness, you're pregnant and we probably haven't had sex yet, so it must be somebody else's, so let's divorce. That's what it said in the Bible. But then he was reassured. He said, no, you be the father to Jesus and things will be fine.
From my understanding is that they were married for a while already and they already had kids. So it's like Immaculate Conception. they had sex, but they didn't have sex to conceive a baby. So it was like they weren't doing it then, and that way he was conceived. This is my understanding, but
we really don't know. But actually, she was betrothed. They were engaged. They weren't married yet. So they could have had sex. I think in normal situations, people probably would.
Let's continue to our next sentence. While it remains a religious feast day, March 19th is now a holiday celebrating all dads in these places. And I like the origin, the thought behind the reason to have this Father's Day on March 19th.
Yeah, the father of Jesus is finally getting a little attention. Father's Day in Brazil, like Spain and Portugal, is connected to a saint's day, but in the South American country, the day of celebration is the second Sunday in August. So there's not really much to say here. It's pretty straightforward. So connected to, that means that it actually came about because of a saint's day. It wasn't specifically for fathers in general. It was originally a saint's day. But it wasn't the father of Jesus who was being commemorated. So in the South American country, they're talking about Brazil. The day of celebration in Brazil was the second Sunday in August. So now we have another Father's Day in August. This day honors Saint Joachim, and that is the name of the saint whose day was on that second Sunday in August. He was the father of the Virgin Mary and, like Saint Joseph, now shares his special day with all fathers. So instead of being the father of Jesus that is honored, it's the father of Mary.
In the second paragraph, the word saint is spelled out, capital S-A-I-N-T. In this third paragraph, we see both instances. We have S-T and a period. When I took my wife to my hometown and we visited those places that I had grown up, I took her to that church that I was involved with, and she saw the word S-T period, and she thought it was street. She's like, oh, is this a street name? No, this is a saint. And I had never thought of this until she brought it up because it looks like street to her.
It is. It's the same abbreviation we use for street. And if you use TTS, which is text to speech, that means you have an electronic text like a PDF or like a Word file or a web page, you can find settings on your phone or a device, and you can have your phone read to you. You do not actually need to buy audiobooks anymore because your device will read to you. So when a device reads to you, it does its best, but it will say something like Street Joseph, or it'll say, you live on Oak Saint.
Yeah.
They often don't know the difference. Now they've gotten better, but they still make mistakes. Okay, so that covers paragraph 3. Paragraph 4.
Let's go to our fourth paragraph. In Australia and New Zealand, Father's Day takes place on the first day of spring,
which is March 21st.
This seems funny to me because we have all these interesting origins for the reasons why we celebrate Father's Day in this time and not this date, or in this country we'll celebrate it here. And I was very interested. I said, oh, well, what will Australia and New Zealand do?
And
okay, first day of spring. And so let's find out. In these Southern Hemisphere countries, this falls on the first Sunday in September.
It's not March because they're in the Southern Hemisphere.
It's
March
like, well,
21st is the first day of spring in the Northern Hemisphere, which includes Taiwan, the PRC, and the U.S., but it is in September in the Southern Hemisphere.
Remember, hemisphere is the top part or the bottom part of the world. If you take the world and cut it in half, one of those halves is called a hemisphere. Let's continue. The choice of date, unlike most places, is all about practicality.
And that sounds interesting because that sounds like I might be able to get an extra day off from work.
That's exactly what they're thinking here. Practicality means something is useful or feasible. Let's continue. September was picked as a time to honor dads because there are few holidays during this time of year.
So it wasn't to move it around, like if it didn't fall on a Friday or a Monday. It was just because they thought you didn't have enough holidays in September, so they added one.
Okay, before we move to our next paragraph, I do want to look at there are few holidays. And yeah, this is kind of a basic kind of point of grammar, but it is something that people mess up. And as a matter of fact, the tutoring family I've been working with for years has a mom that speaks great English. And she made this mistake yesterday. And her son laughed at her and corrected her. And then he corrected it wrong. And I got mad at him because I personally taught this kid English.
He should have known better. And she should have known better. But what is the correction?
So the correction is there are few holidays. It means that there's not a lot. This is a negative. And there are a few holidays. This is a good thing. Now, The only difference here is the letter A. So how can we possibly remember this other than just like brute force memory? Well, the way I teach my students when we come across a few versus few is, well, we know, I can't speak Chinese here, but a few is affirmative. We know that's a good sentence, affirmative, yes. And so I write out a few, and under that A, I write affirmative. And then under few, I just put a red X in front of it. We know that's the negative. And so when we see a few, that's affirmative. That's a good thing. You feel happy. Few is a negative. You don't feel good about that.
For example, there are few people living in this area, not many. There are a few people living here. That means it's worth paying attention to.
That's right. That means affirmative. It's a positive thing.
Okay, our final paragraph. In Thailand, dads need to wait until the end of the calendar year for their celebration. So that means that we must be talking about December now when it comes to Thailand and Father's Day there.
Of course, we have solar calendars. Those are based on the sun. We have lunar calendars, and Taiwanese people should know all about that.
Okay. The country celebrates Father's Day on December 5th, which is the birthday of the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej. And we had to work on that, both of us, because it is not pronounced like it's spelled. So when you run into a name like this, my students normally will go, King. They just make an embarrassed laugh. And I said, don't do that. Act confident and just pretend that it is the KK system. And just read it the best you can. Because people who don't look it up, they would probably say, Bhumibol Adulyadej, or Adulyadej even. Just do your best, and nobody's going to blame you for that because Americans in general do not spend a lot of time learning foreign languages. It's not really important in the U.S. curriculum. So you will probably do better just by guessing than the average native speaker. There is no reason to laugh with embarrassment. Just be confident and read it, and if you have time, you can look it up online. And that's how I found out that it is more like Bhumibol Adulyadej.
While we're on the topic, we actually had this word in Enjoy English magazine, our sister magazine, several months ago. And I made the point that our article had several very difficult names. And Enjoy English is aimed at younger learners than students of analytical English. And I told them the point is not to learn these very difficult nouns.
No.
You're here to learn about the nouns, the vocabulary, the grammar, listening and improving your speaking and helping you prepare for this English test that you have to take soon. So if this noun scares you, just call him Steve. Call him Joe. It doesn't matter. You're not trying to be disrespectful. You are strictly just trying to understand this in a way to help you get towards your goal of passing this test and improving your English and focusing on the everyday grammar instead of this one, honestly, tricky name.
That's right. And I don't think it will be on any of the college admission exams.
That's right.
All right. So they chose the birthday of their late king. Late means that he passed away quite some time ago. He's no longer alive, but they want to honor him. So they picked his birthday to celebrate Father's Day.
He was exceptionally popular.
Not only do families give gifts to fathers and grandfathers, but the reigning king often gives a speech that is broadcast throughout the country. Now, I have to say my initial reaction to this is honoring fathers and grandfathers is a great thing, and that would make me, enthused. Love my father, also love my grandfather. But you say, not only that, but you can listen to the king give a speech on TV, and I thought, big deal?
I wonder if this isn't the American in us, where we kind of want to stick our nose in the face of the king, because I also had that instinct. But I also do recognize that in Thailand, the king is considered, he's beloved. Also, the king is considered a father figure to the whole nation. And so if this is Father's Day, the father of everybody probably would want to say thank you to everybody. And the speeches, as far as I understand them, are uplifting and positive. They're not like, look at me, I'm the king.
If we can continue with this topic, I don't like Christmas cards and I don't like magazines, accumulating in the house. There's another thing I don't like, and it's political speeches. I cannot stand them. Even for politicians who I strongly support, I will not listen to their speeches because they are theater. I'll read about it in the media later or listen to it reported. I don't want to sit there and listen, even though as a foreign language learner, an English language learner, there's a lot you can learn from these speeches. You can learn about good presentation, pronunciation, getting your audience with you. There's a lot of things you can learn. But I personally cannot stand listening to political speeches. And I will give an example of one. I'm working on my French now, Macron is an amazing orator. I mean, that's one of the things he really has going for him. He's incredibly articulate. I cannot stand listening to him talk. And it's not because I don't understand him. I just won't listen to it.
It's interesting. Maybe I fall more on the side of kind of the things that you learn while listening to political speech. I agree in the sense that I generally don't need to hear this speech unless it's something quite exceptional. Some speeches do stick out. But I do enjoy listening to guys like Obama and Trump, even though I don't agree with everything they do. And in particular with Trump, I'm not really his fan. I'm going to be honest. But I do appreciate his ability to connect with an audience and how he does that. And I listen to him not for as a guy that I agree with politically, but as a person that is reaching his audience. And even though he doesn't really represent he doesn't look like, nor does he live like many of his supporters, he knows how to speak to them. And there's power in that as a teacher, because I need to reach out to people that are far younger than me. Listen, I'm in my 40s. How am I relating to a 12-year-old? I need to be able to understand things from their perspective in order to be able to effectively teach them. And I think there's a lot of communication lessons to be learned on that. So I suppose there's a certain value in it, even if I'm not taking away a particular political message.
I totally agree with you, because if someone has been successful in attracting a lot of supporters, they have figured something out, and you could benefit maybe from what they're doing. But please, have different morals. Okay, we're going to go to our questions. Number 1, what event led to the first Father's Day celebration in the U.S. according to the Day 1 passage? And the answer is?
Letter C, a mining tragedy.
Okay, question number 2.
Which of the following is not true about Father's Day in June?
And the answer is B, it was initially created in honor of a president. That is not true. Therefore, it is the correct answer. Question number 3, what do Father's Day in Brazil and Croatia have in common?
What an interesting question. And the answer is letter A. They are on days with religious ties.
And they are both Roman Catholic countries in general, the majority, I would say. And question number 4.
4 people are talking about Father's Day. Which of the following statements is correct?
The answer is letter D. For Australians, people celebrate Father's Day in a month when other holidays are less frequent. So we're going to give you a day off when you're getting really kind of tired of not having a day off. And that's pretty good logic, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Now, one last little tidbit about Father's Day. One thing I'm actually happy that has not carried over, that roses were originally a big part of Father's Day in the United States. A red rose was pinned onto the clothes of children with a father that was still alive. But children who had fathers who had already passed away were given a white rose. And to me, it's a very stark reminder, a red and white rose.
Yeah.
And you're being reminded your father passed away. I mean, I don't know. I'm okay with that one having faded away, but I understand the sentiment.
And white is the color of funerals in Chinese culture. That's it for today. Tune in next time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.